Welcome to another edition of Regenerative Medicine Foundation's Profiles of Hope. And we're going to be speaking today to a person I consider a dear friend and one of the great stem cell advocates, someone who is the grandfather of stem cell advocates, as I like to say, Don Reed. Don Reed has been recognized with in our second year of 16 years of giving honors as with a Stem Cell Action Award for his advocacy. And the amazing thing about Don is he and I worked together in the Stem Cell Action Network, a group of grassroots advocates that believed in the field of stem cell research. Back in 2003 is when we started together on this and with that network. And we have seen the field advance so far over the years. So Don, welcome. And I want to ask you if you wouldn't mind reminiscing a bit about how you became interested in the field of stem cells and why you decided to be an advocate for this emerging field.
Well, Bernie, my son, Roman Reed, was injured in a college football accident, paralyzed from the shoulders down. And we did not accept it. He would not accept it. And so we decided to try and do something about it rather than just accept it. So the biggest thing that we did was a bill called the Roman Reed Spinal Cord Injury Research Act, which funded America's first embryonic stem cell research. And that was a joy. I got to hold in my hand a rat which had been paralyzed and then walked again because it had been given embryonic stem cells. So that was the beginning. But that was very, very small, and we had to get something quite a bit larger. It was a joy meeting you and the beginning of the World Stem Cell Summit. That's a colossus thing. I thank you so much for doing that. That was wonderful. That was the beginning. You and I worked a little bit on that together at Cal Berkeley, which was wonderful. In April 2003, I hooked up with Bob Klein. And Bob Klein is like, Mount Everest. He is the man who makes things happen. So I got to work with him 8 years as a volunteer, and then I went to work for him for Americans for Cures Foundation. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
Don, thank you for referencing Bob Klein. You and I both admire and have worked with Bob Klein for all of these years. We worked together for the Prop 71 campaign. I want you to go back, take the Wayback Machine to how you became involved with Proposition 71 and what that represented to the state and your own involvement.
Well, for me, it was just a joy. I had heard about this person who was trying to get $3 billion in research money, and that was just incredible to me. We fought so hard just to get a couple $1 million for the Roman Reed Act, and to hear somebody talking about billions, my gosh. Someone approached Bob Klein and said, would you mind raising $1 billion for stem cell research? And he said, no. And he said, oh, too much? He says, it's not enough. It should be at least $3 billion. And that's how he thinks. So I went and just approached him and said, I'd like to work with you. And he said, sure. So I walked into this big room, and it was all full of young people. And they had all these boxes of pizza. And I asked the person, what can I do right now to help? She said, well, there's these boxes of pizza, and they're empty boxes, and we need to have backing made for people to sign their signatures on it. And he said, you could take a razor blade and cut them up. So I took a razor blade and cut them up, and that was my first day in stem cell advocacy. So
this was back when, 2003?
Yeah, 2003. That was the beginning.
So the Proposition 71 campaign involves signature gathering, enormous amount of signature gathering.
Enormous.
You were involved with that as well.
Oh my gosh, yes. One funny thing happened. I was on Cal Berkeley, was the most liberal place on earth, right? I'm standing at the corner of University and Telegraph, and I was getting people's autographs. And this woman comes up to me, and I said, oh, would you like to sign this? And she spit on my shoe. And so I gathered she did not want to sign, so I just let her go on her way, and I continued on. But we got the signatures. We got 1.1 million signatures, and that was more than enough.
Well, one of the remarkable things in the journey is the oversight board, the governing board of the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine meets uh, frequently. And you have a record as a patient advocate of attending nearly every meeting for all of these years since 2004. Tell us about that journey and what you hope to achieve and what you witnessed.
It was spectacular because, first of all, everybody there was a champion of their field. You had 6 Nobel Prize winners there. They were part of this. And they're just the very best of the best. But what was important to me was I wondered, would their egos get in the way? Because, these are people that are used to being at the very top. They left their egos at the door. I remember one time I had this argument with a person. We said, let's go outside. And we argued for a while. And we shook hands and went back in. And that was how it was. People would get over their injuries, no problems. They would just go ahead. And every single day was something new. Sometimes there'd be 3 and 4 meetings a week. Like you mentioned, there's quite a few of them at first. Some of them I were a little bit boring because all this stuff has to be hammered out inch by inch by inch. But it was just because it had to be done. One time, a person who was an opponent of Prop 71 came into the room and accidentally leaned on the light switch and turned us into darkness just for a second. And then it came back on. But I thought that kind of sums up what some of the opposition wanted to do. They wanted to shut us down, but we would not be shut down. Patient advocates came, the experts came, everybody got together. We fought, we won.
So what is the importance of and the strength of patient advocates in the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, the stem cell agency?
I can't imagine any organization more open to the involvement of the patient advocates. This is, instead of having patients advocates sitting back there and just being politely, yes, yes, whatever you say, just obeying what we were told and being passive observers. No, we were a part of it. There would always be, period, you could take 3 minutes, anybody could come up, talk for 3 minutes, anything they wanted to. So if you had something to say, and I always did, you just stand up there and you just make your piece. And if you wanted to vote for a particular piece of experimentation, you could vote for it. If you want to be against it, you could say that. You could change the world, the medical world. That was in your hands. Nothing else is like it.
So the Proposition 71 funded $3 billion, but that money is almost gone. So the way it was designed is the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine was going to have a sunset, but it didn't have a sunset. Something else happened. It was called Proposition 14. How did that emerge, and what is the amount and the impact? And of course, it passed on election day. So tell us about that.
Well, no one explained that to Bob Klein. There was supposed to be a sunset. Nobody told him that. And I did. If anybody said that, I didn't hear it either. And we were not going to hear it. It was just too good to let it die. And so we did not. What was amazing, though, was we had to gather the signatures like we did before. But back then, it was much, much, much easier. You could just walk up to a crowd and say, do you support stem cell research? And they'd say, yes, sign here. No problem. We could not approach crowds. The crowds were inside. We had to call people up on the phone. It was very difficult.
COVID. Was this because of COVID?
Because of COVID. COVID made things much, much, much harder. But all the time, Bob never considered the possibility of failure. He just said, well, we have to do this. And everybody, oh, that's a good idea. So let's go ahead and do it. So we just kept step by step by step. The thing is, what was her name? Helen Keller once said that I would like to think that I do great things every day, but the reality is I do small things which maybe add up to great things. And that's what Bob Klein would do. Small things every day, every day, every day. We never quit.
Well, I'd say that you never quit either on this. When I think about the journey, it also included for you a trip to Washington, D.C. And I want you to share with our audience what that was all about and what it meant to you.
We had fought so many times to get embryonic stem cell research legal and have it not be funded. And we couldn't get it to be funded. We had to fight with the president of the United States, George Bush, and he was against it. It was a long, 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 complicated battle. And then finally, we got a new president in there. And I got an email, I thought it was a junk mail, really, from the president of the United States. Said, would I like to come over to Washington and be there when they signed in the new changes allowing embryonic stem cell research? And I called up somebody I knew in there who was a blind person, and he knew all about it. He says, oh, yeah, Said, we can't pay your way, but you're welcome. I said, oh, I'll be there. I'll be there. So my wife and I and my son, Roman, were there in his wheelchair. And we got in this room. They call it the gold room. It's supposed to be the most secure room in the White House. Must be the most secure room in America with all these protections and stuff. And we're waiting and waiting. All it's full of nothing but all kinds of California advocates, all kinds of great scientists, all there, and the advocates. It was wonderful. And all of a sudden, the president of the United States walks in, Barack Obama. When he came in, nobody had to say, please rise. Everybody just floated up to their feet. It was just like wonderful. And he talked for a while, and I really couldn't hear what he was saying because I'm just too full of joy. At the very end, they said, well, the president has no time for autographs or signing or pictures or anything like that. But I thought, no, this is a one chance in a lifetime. So I rushed up to him and I said, my son is paralyzed. He fought really hard. Would you talk to my son? So he came over and talked to my son. And that's what I remember about Barack Obama and that great day.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you had that great day, Don, and you deserved. I want to go back and just talk about Bob Klein for a minute, because Bob, of course, a Stanford-educated lawyer, and Klein Financial, an expert on state bonds and housing, has a brilliant and successful career. But he had a special motive to wanting to get Prop 71 and Prop 14 passed. You know him as well as anyone, any patient advocate, from the time that you spent with him. What motivated Bob Klein, and how do you think Bob should be remembered for his extraordinary advocacy efforts as being the spark and the guiding light for Proposition 71 and 14?
Well, that's two very important, very separate questions. The first, I've never discussed this with him, but I think what began his effort was his son, Jordan, who had type 1 diabetes. And Jordan later died of complications of that, which was a terrible thing and so unfair. Someone who worked so hard as Bob and to lose his son. But what Bob is to me is the champion of those who have no champion. The people who are helpless, who are crippled, who are blind, who are dying. He is on their side and he will never give up. And everybody in the patient advocate community should love Bob and just be grateful he's alive.
Well, he's a remarkable man, and he's never sought the spotlight, interestingly, for the accomplishment. And as I've told many people, I compare him to Mary Lasker, who thought of disease as sin and helped forge the American Cancer Society and eventually the Lasker Award given to science. A remarkable story. So Bob has placed himself into that firmament. But let me just say, Don, you too have placed yourself into that orbit for your dedication to the cause. And I'm going to give you a little plug here. I have 2 volumes of the trilogy that Don has written, and I'm going to get the 3rd volume about the stem cell battles. One, Don wrote Stem Cell Battles, Proposition 71 and Beyond, how ordinary people can fight back against the crushing burden of chronic disease. And there was a foreword by Christopher Reeve in this book. And the second, California Cures, how the California Stem Cell Program is fighting your incurable disease. And of course, these are the stories that you have collected over the years, patient stories, inspiration stories, and insight on the incredible California Institute for Regenerative Medicine experiment that represents in its totality now over $8.5 billion that are going to be spent for this future medicine. And just mentioned your 3rd book as well. I don't have it yet, but what is the title and what are you looking at for volume 4?
The title of the book is Revolutionary Therapies. What I tried to do with the book was to tell stories of people who are actually living the battle and to make the science understandable, which is understand we can't support what we don't understand. This is a woman who was blind, but then regained enough sight to see her children for the first time. This is my son, Roman Reed. This is the little girl who
Hold it up a little higher.
this little
Yeah.
tiny girl here is the one that had the bubble baby disease, which is usually fatal. And she's fine. She's alive. She's doing well. Her and 50 other people just like her. And this is Bob Klein and his family. And I have to tell you a story about Bob. There was a woman who had just had multiple sclerosis, which, as you know, is progressive. And she had just gotten into her wheelchair. And that was a big, terrible blow for her, naturally. But she came up to me at I believe at yours, one of your summits, and she said, I would like to meet Bob Klein. Can you make it happen? And I said, well, I'll try, but he's really tired. And I ran around and I found him, and he was exhausted. And when Bob's tired, his face goes kind of gray. He's just so tired. He works himself to exhaustion. And I said, Bob, there's this person. I told him about the girl. I said, can you please talk to her? And he said, he nodded his head like this. So I went and got the girl, and I brought her over the area, and suddenly Bob Klein bounds around this pillar, and suddenly he's alive and vibrant and shining and smiling. And he said, thank you to her for everything you did. You made Proposition 71 possible. And she went away with a smile on her face. And that's the kind of person that Bob Klein is.
Don, thank you for sharing these anecdotes with us. You're an advocate's advocate and a good friend for many, many years, and we appreciate it. Let's continue the good fight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Bernie. Thank you for all the years of work you put in.
Thank you. Thank you, Don.